Hello, Next Geners. Welcome to our Friday form preview. Tomorrow, Golden Slipper Day. I think we said that last week. Well, we did. It's been postponed 7 days, Hayden. Do you think they made the right call?
Oh, 100%. They made the right call. It was devastating weather. Once in 100, every year it seems like something that happens once in 100 years happens. But this time it was very disturbing vision of floods from Sydney, and we wish everybody involved, especially our folk in the horsing industry. We've seen some trainers with some properties flooded, etc. Hopefully the Sydney community can all band together and assist those trainers who are doing it quite tough at the moment.
Yeah. Well said. I think we preempted it last week that this was an option. I think they made the right call to push it back a week. Masked Crusader on Friday night in the Manicato, mate. Obviously, we were interested. We both had Libertini on top, I think, from memory, or I had Haydock as an option as well, but we both had Masked Crusader in our numbers. You gave him a great push, and, geez, wasn't that quite a performance?
Yeah, he certainly went to the next level and put himself right in the talking point of races like the Everest. So he's an exciting sprinter. There was a little opening there for somebody to put their hand up and say, I'm the next big thing. And he certainly found that 2 to 3 lengths that was required. He was electric, and that was an awesome ride for our good friend of the show, Willie Pike.
And Willie continued it on a Saturday at Mornington, and we spoke about that as well. You were keen on Mount Popper. You gave Dom to shoot a good push and Lavarod, and all three got the chocolates in the quaddie legs.
Well, they say you back Pike, you drink what you like. Or that man's just it's like he's got an odometer on there. He's got a speedo attached to their top of their heads, and he just knows how fast they're going. And you can put him on any racetrack in the country, and he seems to find his way. He's a superstar of the sport, and that was a big day for him. It was a good day for myself. I just wish that prior to the meeting that there was the 100 to 1 that I was looking for the Popper into the Caulfield Cup. If it's a plain sort of Caulfield Cup year, he's certainly in calculation now.
Well, he's $15 now, and I think he's nearly equal favourite with last year's winner, Very Elegant, which looks a bit short on paper.
Oh, yeah, but he's got that. He's racing to his OS profile, and he's starting to go past that now. So I'd say he's still no ceiling on him, and he's only a length and a half away from really stamping himself as a real big competitor in a race like a Caulfield Cup. So it's, he's getting very close to the improvement needed to put himself right there. So I can't knock him. I think he's an exciting horse.
Bit of news during the week. Alco Pop passed away, aged 16. In his last prep, he ran second to Ocean Park in a Caulfield Stakes, and obviously Ocean Park went on and won the Cox Plate. Ran second to Dunedin in a Caulfield Cup, then ran in the McKinnon and won the McKinnon. I think he went to Hong Kong and ran third in might have been a Hong Kong Gold Cup.
Yeah, he was a brilliant little horse, and he certainly put Jake Stevens as a trainer of him, wasn't he? He certainly put Jake and his small stable on the map and done great things for them. So very sad to hear the passing of him. And I think we've had some retirees during the week.
I think Anders has gone to stud. Who else have we lost to stud or retired this week?
Yulong, boy.
Yeah, he's
Yulong
gone
Prince.
to stud. Great prep last campaign. I think he ran 4th in the Epsom and then came out and won the Cantala, didn't he? And we had some good fun that day. I think he's certainly been the best Yulong to race in their colours.
I think I should send him a good luck card. He's an excellent horse for me over the spring. Absolutely.
I think he's joining Tagaloa at stud there next year. So they're building a nice little band. Also announced this week the turnover figures from the All-Star Mile, just over $17.5 million, which makes it the most bet on race since Cup Week last year. Probably no surprises, although I thought maybe the wet track on the day might have turned off a few punters. Arcadia Queen out of the race, it lost a little bit of depth, but surpassed the Newmarket, the Lightning, the Oakley Plate as betting races.
Yeah, it wasn't not a bad effort for a day where I proclaimed it might be a good day to put the gun in the holster if the weather turned. So to get a result like that with the weather with the weather the way it was and the track racing the way it was with that hard on speed, hard on rail style race pattern, you know, it was pretty much impossible to make ground and win from those wider lanes. So, you know, whether the guys just decided it was time to put the chips in because they had the map that they liked, or what it was. But I thought the winner of that race, Mugger 2, he was sensational. So someone made some money.
Yeah, and well, from memory, I think Russian Camelot got really backed in on the day as well with that rain. But there would have been a lot of punters throughout the autumn just betting into that race, and a few probably did their money on Arcadia Queen, and certainly probably didn't handle the track, which is strange because I've been doing the form for this Golden Slipper meeting, trying to find horses that like the wet track, and Probabile did have a really strong performance in the wet. I'm interested in getting your thoughts. Are there horses that younger in life enjoy the wet, and then maybe as they get older don't enjoy it, or how do you assess horses that you know, a few campaigns back had really good wet track indicators, and then it starts to look like they just don't appreciate it at all?
A lot of it comes down to when you're looking at horses predominantly on wet tracks, it does come down to the class of the race that they were in on the day and the talent in and around those. One thing wet tracks really do is they put in deceiving margins. When a rider sits up or stops riding, feels he's in a position where he can't finish in that prize money, as soon as you do drop the hands, as they say, the margin becomes extreme. And with wet tracks, every single runner who gets beaten on the day, if you go and stand with connections, the track will be the reasoning for the defeat on most occasions. It's a very easy out, and the communication just predominantly says that we didn't handle the track. With wet tracks, we're lucky enough with our programming that we do have a separate measurement for how horses do go on wet tracks. When it comes to a horse like Probabile in the mile, I would have her down more as race shape and position in run was highly disadvantaged rather predominantly than the wet track itself. You can measure her up against a horse like Star of the Seas, for example, who's got, you know, previously had outstanding wet track form. He's simply struggled in the same conditions, and everything on the day that was posted in those 3, 4 and 5 wide lanes that was midfield or worse found it almost impossible to get into the race. Okay. So you got to be forgiving. A lot of it comes down to race shape, tempo, position in run versus a race shape will be extremely advantageous on wet tracks. And if there is a distinct advantage lane-wise, like there was an enormous advantage lane-wise in that Moonee Valley, you seemed, if you're anything worse than, say, 3 off the fence, you were gone in the straight, you can pretty much knock out 3/4 of the field on position in run. So they're going to come back with failures on the wet. To me, Probabile, she's a horse who does get through the wet, but she doesn't like tight turning racetracks on the wet, where she's more of a straight line build up speed and can respond to high pressure. So you go back to the Cox Plate day, she was on the inferior ground on the inside, where you had to get right out into those middle lanes to make ground. Then you put her in the All-Star Mile and she's on the outside lanes where you needed to be previously, and she's in the inferior ground again. So it's quite easy to get the perception that she doesn't go through it. But, you know, I wouldn't be scared to back her back into a high pressure mile style race, going back to Sydney at a Randwick or a Rose Hill, where she can use her straight line acceleration to her benefit.
Really interesting dissection there. I think there's a lot of value in that. Let's get stuck into the card at Rose Hill. Race 1 is the Derby Munro. Really strong race to start the day. Isotope $3 favourite. Marbusha $5.50. Private Eye $8. Andermatt $8. Doubtland $8.50. 1,000 Guineas winner Odium at 10. Prague is 13, and then it's $19 the rest.
Well, it was a good race to start the card. we expecting a H8, or is there any possibility that this track can improve? Will they do the low-flying helicopter trick and try and get some moisture out of this racetrack? Or I've done my form based on a H8. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I did the form on a H8 as well. I think even if it is soft 7, they've had over 300 mils the last 7 days. And I think even if it's soft 7 for the first race, there's going to be a bit of chop, bit of wear, and I think it's going to race like a heavy 8 type track.
If they can produce that track in the soft range where a couple of kilometres down the road, people's houses are floating away, they've done an extraordinary job with that racetrack to even contemplate. They're lucky to be even racing, let alone talking about soft conditions. So race 1, interesting race. Ton of horses here who do get through the ground.
And is that the question on Isotope at the moment?
What's that, sorry?
Is that the question on Isotope at the moment? Have you got any evidence that Isotope will enjoy the wet?
He did race twice. He has raced twice on tracks that you could deem to be in the soft range. And there was definitely no excuses coming through those runs. Obviously, when you get to A, heavy conditions, and B, right up in class in those heavy conditions, you're really going to get your talent tested. I landed with Prague. I was taken with Prague's run at Flemington. He was 16th best of the day, 1.4 lengths above IVR benchmark. He's got a performance this track and trip earlier on a track that I would deem heavy. And that was a career best performance for Prague, 2.9 lengths above IVR. A repeat of the performance at Flemington. Would see him hard in the finish here. I couldn't knock him. Thought he was an outstanding price. I was really, really taken with Matchmaker's first career start. First start here. Second best of the day performance. New Zealander comes here. Most of them get through the ground. Most of them have trained on the track on that style of condition over in NZ, and they seem to handle it. So, talent-wise, certainly got the talent to be extremely competitive. And I can give, even though I'm not 100% sure he's come up this campaign, a massive run at Randwick was Doubtland, and he's a swimmer. So they were the 3 that I was focusing around at this point in time, but do concede there's probably best part of 10 runners here who do get through the ground. You can push out a horse like Odium will get through the ground. Yep. Bella Nipotina, we know, gets through the ground. We've followed her into wet racing before. Andermatt's quality horse, as is Marbusha. So ton of talent here. But I was just taken with Prague's run at Flemington, and I thought Matchmaker and Doubtland were great odds.
Yeah, I actually got drawn to Prague through his wet form as well. Had the figures that I thought would certainly be good enough to win here. I think Isotope might be the best 1,200 metre horse in the race. And that's comparing her to a horse like Odium, who has great figures, but they're mostly at the mile. Doubtland for me is probably just a step below the best 3-year-olds, but the wet track does bring Doubtland into it. But at the price, I think I'm happy to have a play each way on Prague. And Annabelle Neesham, good luck to her. She's in for a big day with Mwanga and others running around today. Prague, she obviously had a pretty high opinion of him running him in the Newmarket, and he wasn't disgraced. I think he came from 15th of 17th at the 800 and ran 4th. So third up here, I'm happy to follow you into and back Prague each way. Race 2, the Manion Cup, 2,400 metres, Group 3. We see horses like, we're seeing a number of Australian bloodstock horses like Mustajir and Raheen House. The $4.40 favourite is Sacramento for Gay Waterhouse. Collide, $6.50 is Australian bloodstock's shortest priced runner. And then William Haggis has Favourite Moon, which is interesting to see. Obviously, William Haggis here with Adea has brought favourite Moon as well. So it'd be nice to see if you've got any insight into that horse. Daduzart, $9. Realm of Flowers, $9. Quick Thinker, $9.50. Skymax, $11. Chiro as well for Australian Bloodstock at $14.
Nice horse, favourite Moon. One thing we know about the Haggis camp is when they travel horses, especially a horse that we'll touch on later, but when they travel the stablemate, rarely do they bring one who, they don't bring the Shetland pony here just to keep the stablemate happy. They do come here and they target something with another runner from the stable, and more often than not, this stable get the job done. You've got a really solid OS profile. He'll get through the conditions and he'll eat 2,400 metres. So he goes on top for mine. Think he's the horse to beat.
Okay.
Think he will only need a performance in the benchmark +1 range to either be getting the money or being hard in the finish. He goes on top for mine. Then there's a couple of stayers here who look like they get big advantages getting to 2,400, B, getting to a heavy surface. One's Quick Thinker for the Baker-Forsman McDonald combination. It's taken with his latest performance and he looks ready to elevate. Big mid-race squeeze, sustained last 400. He had a drop-off between the 4 and the 2, but sustained his speed late. So everything points to him being ready to rumble. He's got a lightning wet track indicator. He'll handle everything down to a heavy 20. So I want to keep him hard on side. The other horse I could throw in here at, probably get 50 to 1 on the day, but he's a duck, is Raheen House. 2,400 is probably on the shorter end of where he wants to be.
Yeah.
22 length squeeze last start, got him to +3 through the mid. I loved his little rebound through the last 200. He's certainly a horse who can finish in the top 5 and you'll get 50 to 1 about him. He's a real race shape style horse that, he needs everything to go right. If he gets it, he can finish in the money. I can't really knock any runners. It's a tough race. The other horse I thought might be ready would be Realm of Flowers, but no knock, certainly no knock on the favourite. But I was in the Haggis camp.
Yeah, and you mentioned Haggis bringing the stablemate. Well, he brought the stablemate for this race last year, and that was Young Rascal, and won the race on Australian debut. So says a lot about him bringing a horse to target this race as well. For me, it didn't seem like a betting race, and the one I was attracted to was Raheen House as well. But for me, one run away, did a similar prep last autumn where resumed over 2,000 metres and then had a second run in this race, ran 6 to Young Rascal, beaten nearly 5 lengths, and then third up on a heavy 8 in the Chairman April 4th at Randwick, won the Chairman's Stakes, Group 2 over 2,600. So I'll be looking for Raheen House, a good run here, and then I'll be really keen next start. Certainly loves the wet. Race 3, Epona Stakes. This is a big field, 1,900 metres. Perhaps the best horse in the race is currently Second Emergency. The horses include She's Ideal, Miss Siska, just getting up the market now. She's Ideal is $2.70. Ice Bath, $4.60 is that Second Emergency. Polly Gray, interestingly, James McDonald has jumped off Welsh legend for Chris Waller's other horse, Polly Gray, but they're both $7. Attention Run, $15, and it's $20 the rest.
Who do you think that I'm going to put on top in this race?
Well, I know you're a big fan of She's Ideal. You've had a bit of time for Ice Bath before. You'd probably be putting the favourite on top, She's Ideal.
Yeah, right horse, right race. Got a pattern here where they can be running on hard in the faster ground out wide. And race shape's going to be her biggest competition here. Whether she can remain in a position to be able to strike, that's going to be her main challenge, if Ice Bath gets a run, it's extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
Little question mark up to the 1900. I'm not really sold on that, and I can give it a significant haircut and basically take it back down to a benchmark level with the question marks at the distance, especially on the testing track. So I've got a question mark surrounding that. The one right down the bottom, you'll get monster odds. Amika, if it gets a run, keep your eye on it. And then you go to horses like Rhonda Neela and Welsh Legend, but I thought She's Ideal gets an ideal scenario, and she's basically just needs to be close enough to strike. If she is, if I get better than $3, I'll be very interested in getting involved.
I think she's $4 into $2.70. I thought Ice Bath, if Ice Bath got a run, I'd be interested in her. I also thought Welsh Legend was probably the better of the two wallet chances. I know Polly Gray likes the wet, but I thought Welsh Legend was probably the stronger chance, but they're both $7. And in the race, it's probably not a real standout betting race for me, but I'd probably put Ice Bath on top if I wake up Saturday morning and she has a run. Race 4, we get into the real big races now. It's the Randwick Stakes. We see a Dayab clash again with Very Elegant at Group 1 level. Colette's in the race, Miami Bound, Master of Wine, the Cox Plate winner Sir Dragonet, Angel of Truth, Natoya, and then a nice little benchmark 61 horse, Cliffs of Moher.
Yes. Old Cliff's going to know he's alive. Oh, Cliffy boy, eh?
$7,000 for ninth place.
Oh, just get some tickets to the day, show up, have a nice little $7,000 trial and go home.
Yep.
Interesting race. Very interesting race.
Yeah, let's break it down, because obviously a day took Sydney Autumn by storm last year and then went to Ascot and continued that form overseas. Very Elegant has won a Caulfield Cup, a Wing Stakes, and a Chipping Norton, a Turnbull since last autumn. Colette's been in great form. Sir Dragonet has that +5 figure on a wet 2,000 metres, and Master of Wine, we know he loves it wet, and he sort of has a +4 figure on the wet 2,000 metres in Sydney as well.
I mark this race, if the track's heavy, can't see the big boy getting beaten. If the track sneaks into that soft range, brings her right back into play. Colette's a duck. Huge advantage with her on the heavy track, wet track, and she can sprint sharp. She brings what the other two don't have. She's got the big ping on the wet track. Marquand's not going to muck around on Adiab. He's going to make it brutal. He won't be sitting there trying to sprint over 250 metres. He'll get him. He'll get this horse to his top. He knows horse back to front. Very Elegant. Everybody goes. I have a little bit of a different opinion of Very Elegant with the wet tracks than everybody else. I think she's super mare in that S6, S7, better side, a heavy 8. I think she's brilliant under those conditions, and I don't think she is as dominant, and she can be exposed on heavy tracks when she gets those elite wet trackers around her, which, horses like Adiab and Colette are. So I've got him on top. I think Colette will bounce and be dangerous with Very Elegant. Master of Wine we touched on. I'm waiting for him to come back to that 2019, 2020 form. He's a swimmer, heavier the better for him. And the other runner I had a little bit of interest in was Miami Bound. And I think you want to keep a close eye on where she's going this campaign. I was really taken by her run, her latest run at Flemington. She was very good at Caulfield first up. She was excellent at Flemington. She's in for a pretty big campaign. And when she gets out to that 2,500 metre range in Sydney, especially if there's a little bit of juice out of the ground, she's going to win a race up there, I think. So just keep an eye on her. She could go big.
Yeah, her win at Moonee Valley over 2,500 metres on Cox Plate Day was very impressive in the wet last year. And you're not giving Sir Dragonet a chance?
No, he's go back to his Cox Plate run. Go back to his Cox Plate run, and he's fighting out the finish and scaring the life out of the top couple. It's mighty hard to find 10 lengths. Mighty hard. I know he gets to his trip and he gets his conditions, but he just doesn't look like the same horse. Like you go and have a look at the horses who are around him in the All-Star Mile. Like seriously, we're talking about a Cox Plate winner. We're talking about a Cox Plate winner who flies wet, and Streets of Avalon's in front of him, and Regano di Gaetano is not far off him. Now you go and have a look at Adiab, Very Elegant, Colette, Marshall Wine.
Yeah.
No, he can leave me out. But if he knocks him off, he's got the number.
He does have the number, and he, I think, a mile short of his best, but it makes you scratch your head when he did what he did in the Cox Plate, and then we haven't seen, his run in the Melbourne Cup was actually pretty good, but his 2 runs over the shorter trip hasn't looked like it at all. So
the mile, I've heard that getting zipped around a little bit, that the mile's not his go. But if you're a Cox Plate winner in the wet Moonee Valley, you get a mile. Yeah. Especially in the wet.
Fair point. All right. So you're with Adeo on top, and if it is an improving track, you give good chances to Colette and Very Elegant.
Very Elegant if the track improves.
Yep.
If the track stays in the H range, I'll start to look at Colette a little bit more from a second position perspective.
Yeah, okay. Race 5 is the Rosehill Guineas. Cracking field here, in my opinion. Lions Raw, Luna Fox, Moanga, Montefilia. I'm getting up the market now. I assume they're the top 4 in the market with Grand Slam. So we've got Moanga at 270, Montefilia 650, Grand Slam 750, Lions Raw $8, Skylab 11, Wheelhouse 13, Quay 15, Luna Fox 19.
Yeah, I thought this was Lions Raw versus the racetrack, to be honest. He was electric last start.
Yeah. +4 performance, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was 3rd best of the day, +4.6.
Yeah.
That was at a mile. That was clearly his best performance to date over a mile. And previously, his previous PB was over 2,000. So if he's gone to a new level, you can't knock him at all. Over 2,000 metres. Moanga looks like it's flicked the switch. Impossible to fault. I think there's a little bit too much discrepancy in that market.
Yeah.
And those two might just be racing the racetrack, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I thought Wheelhouse was the one who could leap and be competitive. Waller Camp, always dangerous. And then you've got to look at horses like Montefilia, even to a lesser extent, a horse like Kaki could jump out and do something But, you know, if you got 100 to 1 winner, it wouldn't be the first time a race like this served up a big odds winner. But I thought the two, you know, if either Lions Roar or Mo'unga get through the racetrack, they'll win.
Yep.
And then you go out to Montefilia, who's certainly got the number to win the race, and she will get through the wet track. You know, she's not an elite wet tracker, but she will get through it. And then after that, you've got a series of horses in that +1 to -1. So it's very compressed after that. So I was Lions Roar just on top of Mo'unga. Wheelhouse and Montefilia.
You summed it up well. I think I put out a tweet a couple of weeks ago for the Randwick Guineas and said, do you want to take $2.20 for Agon the win or $2.20 for Mo'unga the place? And I was firmly in the Mo'unga camp that day. Well, today you've got $2.20 for Mo'unga to win or $2.70 for Lions Roar to place. And I think I'd be taking Lions Roar to place at those odds. I've got a futures ticket on Montefilia at $56 and 14 the place that I'm happy to ride. My little question mark with her is 1,400 first up to 2,000 second up. With that extra week, is she going to be a little bit underdone and a run short? Potentially, because she was beaten a fair way from Forbidden Love, and Lions Roar Mo'unga obviously come out of that really high pressure race. The fitness won't be an issue for them. So if I'm betting on Saturday, I want to bet Lions Roar each way, probably 10 to win, 40 the place, and comfortable that gets through the ground, runs top 3, no problem. Race 6, the George Ryder Group 1. Interesting race when you factor in the wet track, because I think Colding's probably the best miler in the race, doesn't like it wet. Avilius does like it wet. Dreamforce, Samadout, Star of the Seas, Gem Song, Think It Over, Cascadian, Dalasan, Dawn Passage, Junipal. Mizzy's been brilliant her last 2 stars, and then down the bottom you've got Fun Star.
Oh, this is the style of race where if this was a G4, I would be putting the shoulders back here to be betting into this race. My style of race to do form on. Heavy track makes it a little bit more complicated, but I did land firmly in the Avilius camp, and there's an each way price there. I'm more than keen to get involved. When you go back to his previous, I was super confident with him first up that he would run a massive race. I backed him, and for 100 metres, I was quite sure I was going to be, I was positive I was collecting my place ticket, but I wanted to see if he could go up and bury 2 pretty smart horses. His run came to an end about 100 metres from home. He just had a slight decline over the last 200. He lost 0.8 of a length, and that was the difference between him getting the money and not. He beaten 0.4 of a length, very elegant Colette, who, you know, as we touched on before, Australia's 2, you know, they'd have to be the premier wet trackers of the Australian racing scene. Gets conditions again, and you're going to get an each way price. You know, it's impossible to ignore. And I think he's an ideal Nash Rawiller horse. Nash is a great rider for him. So I'm keen. I think he'll be winning. Then the race busted wide open after that. Star of the Seas, if you can forgive off the performance in the All-Star Mile, he may have raced flat from the high exertion from Flemington prior, but he does this a lot in his campaigns where he puts in the big flashing run and can't sustain it later in campaigns. I've got to go back to this time last year where he was electric first up, over 1,100, raced flat and rebounded 3rd up, and he did it on a heavy track at a mile. So
Yeah.
Can do it, and he's the wrong price. And then the race is really compact after that. Cascadian's a horse who will love the wet ground, gets an ideal race shape, but talent-wise doesn't have the talent of those around it. Fun Star, promising the world and not delivering. Flies wet, best chance for some time. Very dangerous runner. And good friend of the show, Junipal. I wish him all the best and would love to see him flashing into a first four finish. So for me, Avilius on top. It's his day. From Star of the Seas, Fun Star, and Junipal.
All right. Interesting race. Very interesting race. I went over these. Colding, I had to put a line through for the wet. Avilius, I give a shout. Dreamforce, I thought could run a good race. James McDonald on board would want to be leading and make them catch him, and he could run a big race. And then the other two that stood out to me as will handle the ground were Star of the Season, Fun Star. For me, though, Fun Star, so I look at the Golden Eagle where she was favourite. She ran pretty much last. Don't think that was a wet track. I'm putting that down to end of prep run for her, coming off a massive couple of runs where she ran sort of +4 figure to Wild Planet, then ran second in the Epsom, huge run to run second to Probabile, and then obviously started favourite, heavy 9 Golden Eagle, and just didn't turn up. So I'm putting that down to end of prep. But I just haven't seen the numbers this prep that makes me say she's ready to explode. So it makes me think either she's not going to get up this prep or she might be a runaway. So for me, probably can't bet into her, which leaves me with Star of the Seas. And I'm seeing it similar to you in that massive first up run. Wet track's not an issue, but I think flatness probably was the issue and still ran pretty well around benchmark performance on a soft 6. She does like the wet, but I'm thinking 2 weeks between runs, she was flat. She does have that figure. He does have that really good figure from first up this prep, and any sort of bounce back towards that +5. It doesn't need to be a +5, but it could be a +3. For me is definitely a place bet. At $9 to win, $3 a place. I'm looking at Star of the Seas as my 10 to win, 40 the place play, and it wouldn't surprise if Dreamforce led all the way. Fun Star could turn up, but I think needs to find a few lengths. And then Avilius, of course, but Avilius at 420 for me isn't the way I want to play. I'd rather play Star of the Seas each way at 9 and 3. All right, let's flick over to the big race, the Golden Slipper. Profiteer, $3.60 favourite, stay inside, $4.60. 4 moves ahead is $5.50. Artorius, the Blue Diamond winner, hasn't run since that day, $9. Ingratiating 12, Home Affairs 16, Animo 17. Then you get 27 the rest.
And this is a scary race. You could just see him setting them alight, being too far out in front, and can't catch him. Flies wet. He's a box ticker. He's got a good wet track profile on what he's been exposed to date, but you've got a series of horses here who haven't seen anything like this before. And trainers like to say that they have them tuned to the minute. Well, they need to have them tuned to a week longer, which again makes things even more difficult. Not a race I'm looking to bet into at all. But for the sake of the exercise, we've got to come up with something. Animo was electric latest.
Yeah.
Hard to ignore. 0 exposure wet ground. Profiteer's the one who's had a little look at it, and he looks like he'd fly in it. I just can't really get excited about it at all. It was impossible to ignore the performance of Artorias in the Blue Diamond. And he's got a profile that says he could probably continue to leap. So Home Affairs, Animo, Profiteer, Artorias, Swift Witness, all bring in profiles within half a length of each other. Integrating, Stay Inside, Shakiro, 4 Moves Ahead, Rocket Tiger, all within another half length of each other. It'll just be a smart, tactical, best horse in the conditions. Would be surprised if something spaces the rest of them. If there's an elite wet tracker there amongst them, that camp's going to have a mighty big day. The horse I come back to was Stay Inside. I'm not betting into the race, but I marked it on top with Profiteer, Home Affairs, Taurus, Animo, and not interested at all in betting in this. Just be a sit back, watch and enjoy it.
Okay.
Can't give anyone anything else.
Yeah. If I was having a bet in this race, there are 2 that I am interested in. One being Animo, who I think I'm right in saying has the best IVR figure coming into this race last start.
Yep.
Haven't seen on wet, so you'd be betting with caution, but I think the bookies $17 and $4.60. I don't know why they're betting that. Maybe it's because Artorias beat it in the Blue Diamond, but I think Animo looks like definitely improved out of the Blue Diamond sharply at its last start, and best IVR figure going into the race at $17 and $4.60. I could have a small each way play on it. And the other horse I would entertain is 4 Moves Ahead. Ran a minus 0.2 last start, 1,200 metres. And that was on a wet track. It got adjusted up, that figure, 5.5 lengths. Between the 8 and the 600 ran a +1, and then it was -3 from the 6 to the 4. So I had a 4-length slowdown and was able to lift the last 400 metres to get that win. A cleaner run in transit. You can't add 4 lengths onto that number, but you could add, a length or 2. Draws barrier 10 here, Natural Willa. I give 4 Moves Ahead a pretty good run, unbeaten in 2 starts. For me, the two betting opportunities are 4 Moves Ahead and Animo.
I can't argue with you at all.
That's if you want to bet, of course. Gamble
responsibly, mate.
Race 8 is the Galaxy. Tallier loves it wet, $4.60. Favourite, Corpry on her, $4.80. Was huge first up last prep. And you can understand why there's money for Horbury on her with James McDonald riding. Wild Ruler, $6.50. Eduardo was huge at $7, was huge beating Nature Strip last start. Dirty Work 14. Well, we were on in the Oakley plate. Not sure about Dirty Work on the wet track here. Jonker, $15, brings good form from Queensland, but must be a question mark on the wet. And Fabigino with Chris Waller, first start for the stable, $17. Easy Eddie, Jungle Edge, Splintex, Order of Command. One of our favourites, Fiesta at 26. Bella Valor, another one of our favourites at 31. And the Odyssey, $101.
Interesting race. Eddie's spike performance is hard to ignore. Latest 1,000 metres Randwick. If the race was run here over 1,000 metres, I'd be mighty confident. 1,200, push him to his Level, tick on the wet track. That's
1100 here, mate.
1100. Okay, well, that makes things a little bit easier for him.
Was that Eduardo you're talking about? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tick on the wet, no worries. If he even thinks about going anywhere near that last start performance Randwick where he broke the track record, he wins. Simple as that. Nash on board. Dangerous runner, dangerous each way price. Hortbury on her should come to play. I don't expect Eduardo to go to that level again. I think you know, that could be a little bit of a gut buster, that one. Which would bring him back to the field. Hortbury on her, dangerous horse. Right race shape. Ticks a lot of boxes, Hortbury on her, dangerous runner. You know, not much between those two from an on-top perspective. Jonker, it's hard not to be taken by Jonker's latest performances up in Brisbane. I think they bring the right horse down again. The Golan camp, they're pretty smart operators, these boys. Wet track, heavy track, little concern. Better numbers definitely on the dry. Then the race busted wide open. Even horses like Easy Eddie, Order of Command, the Odyssey become dangerous in these conditions and can all be added to your multiples. No knock at all, Tallier. Massive advantage on the heavy surface here.
Yeah.
Absolutely flies wet. And a performance in the twos might be good enough. If it's a two-style race, it'll be winning. But, you know, couldn't go diving into, I couldn't mark it favourite, that's for sure. But nice horse on the way up, can't knock. So for me, very, very little Hortbury on her and Eduardo. Respect Jonker and those other plotters that I mentioned after that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a bit like you. It's a tough race. I think if it was on a dry track, I'd be pretty keen to have another go at Dirty Work.
He's just an out and out dry tracker. I've got the pen through him, so.
Which is a shame because this certainly looks like the right type of race for him, but dry track, I couldn't go there. I'm leaning towards Eduardo each way, $7 the win, $2.50 the place. I think the extra week to get over that track record win over Nature Strip is a massive advantage for Eduardo. And as you said, doesn't need to go anywhere near that level. What was he, plus high fives? Did he hit 6 or?
Eduardo, in his most recent,
yeah,
he was a best of the day plus 6.7.
Wow, plus 6.7. I was just trying to go off the top of my head there. So even if he lost 4 lengths, he's running a plus 2.7. Has the wet track form. Doesn't need to go anywhere near that last start number, and he can still win. And I'm shocked at the $7, $2.50 price. So I'll be Eduardo again, 10 the win, 40 the place. The last state, the last race, the Tab Birthday Card Stakes, Emanate 420, Wonder Bar 550, Written Beauty 550, Every Rose 650, Your Girl Seasons at 11, Tricky Gal 12, Volpine 14, Generals 19, $20 the rest.
$11 you said, yeah?
$11 for, she's 14 into 11.
$11. Wow, hey. Oh, well.
Having another dip?
Yep. Big time. I'm in. Horse to beat. Keen. K-Mac. Swims. No issue for mine. Keen on her from an each way perspective. Would not surprise me whatsoever to see her winning. Dangerous runner. Volpine flying.
Yep.
Absolutely airborne. Pass mark in the wet. Hasn't really been exposed to these style of conditions if we get that real heavy 8. Setup. Then it is a big even bunch after that. Horses like Written Beauty, expected to rebound, Emanate. Wonderbar can be a dangerous runner in a race like this. And you get 300 to 1 about Allison of Tuffy, and it could run a little sneaky. But for me, certainly Seasons on top, horse to beat, and think it's a ridiculous price. I would mark it equal favourite.
All right, well, I'm happy to go with you. I looked at the race and thought, I looked at the race and thought I'll just get Hayden's opinion and follow him in here, because you've got a great read on some of these horses. Certainly Seasons is one you've followed for a while. Is Barrier 1 a little bit sticky?
I've got no issue at all with drawing Barrier 1. It's the people like to confuse themselves with things they can't control. Very important for your mentality that you look past stuff like that. It doesn't matter what barrier you draw. You're going to get bad luck in races. You're going to get things not go your way, race shape, etc., etc. It's just when the visual disappointment comes into play, where you get stuck or you get shuffled one pair too far back, etc. You get a little bit disgruntled when your ticket has a one-way ticket into the rubbish bin. But for me, no issue at all. And, they're not going to stay a hard rail.
Yeah.
By this stage of the day, they could be going anywhere. So I would be much more inclined to find the horse that can get through the ground rather than worrying about things that are out of my control. So I'm confident she gets through it. And I'm confident that she gets she's got a race pattern which will be favourable, so she can be closer to the leader than to the rear, which, if you get through the track, you get an unimpeded straight line run and you get through the ground, very hard to beat. And a lot of the time, the rider under these circumstances is worth a lot too. So, you get a guy like Markland, etc., a Karen McAvoy, a Glenn Boss, Tommy Berry. You get these guys at James McDonald that are extremely balanced and time their runs very well. A lot of time they're a distinct advantage on wet ground, where if you get some of the guys who are, your long rein riders, unbalanced, heavy whip riders, they can unbalance them. And when they try and ride for tactical gaps, etc., be a big disadvantage on wet ground. So Karen's an outstanding wet track rider, and I'm more than happy to have him on.
All right, I'm just going to jump on Facebook because I put the call out about any questions. Just the one here, Dale Hooper. Will you guys be keen to bet early or wait to see if there's a bit of a pattern at Rose Hill?
Each to their own when it comes to people putting their hands in their pocket to be betting. It's really each to their own. Me personally, I rarely bet when the price is open. I'm not one that's big on pricing.
I think he means will you be betting race 1 or waiting to see how the track's playing?
No, if your bet's there, I never wait and see how the track's playing. I go into the meeting with a firm observation that is my expectation of the racetrack. With rail in certain positions, rain, heavy, the expectation is what it is. So for me, track playing, especially early in the day, it's a very dangerous thing for people. It's a very dangerous thing for people to do, because normally earlier in the day, the inferior races are early, small fields early, and you can actually get a false read on those races. And many people judge how the first favourite goes in the lane it's in. And that's basically the only thing that they look at to judge how the track's going to play for the entirety of the day. To give you an example, Rose Hill rail in this position, 40% of the winners come from lanes 8 to 11. So that gives you the indication that you can get off the fence here and make ground.
Yep.
And you've got 30% of the winners come from midfield. So, it still plays leader on pace if you can get off the fence. It definitely gives those in the opportunity in the stalking positions to run on. I wouldn't look away from that for the entirety of the day. If they start to scout wider, which you would expect them to do, most of the time when they look to scout off the fence and make runs middle of the track heading towards the outside, that heavily favours those stalking in midfield positions, and very difficult for a leader to get that right. Most of the time, the front two only tow those around, and while they're steering out wide, they're actually artificially slowing down. So that gives the stalker the opportunity to make ground without overexerting. So dangerous game to play, judging racetracks early in the day based on inferior fields and favourites positioning.
All right, let's run over our bets quickly. Race 1, we both like Prague at $13 as an each-way play. Race 2, William Haggis has favourite Moon here, won the race with a day of stablemate last year, and you like the profile of that horse coming into this race. Just jump in if I say anything that's, if I put words in your mouth. Race 3, She's Ideal, $2.70, right race for her. Race 4, you like a Dab on a heavy track with Colette as the main danger. An improving track brings Very Elegant right into it. Race 5, Rosehill Guineas. Lions Roar looks over the odds at $8 and $2.50 when you compare him with Mwanga at $2.70 the win. So I think we both like Lions Roar as an each-way play. The Ryder, we see it a bit differently. You've got Avilius on top and the one to beat, which the market does as well. I like Star of the Season, $9 and $3 a place as your each-way play in that race. The Golden Slipper, you don't see it as a betting race. You've got Stay Inside on top of Profiteer. I've got Animo as over the odds at 17, and I also made a case for 4 Moves Ahead, who had a 4-length slowdown mid-race last start and was able to kick back and win. $5.50 with Natural Willa riding. The Galaxy, I think we both like Eduardo at $7. You've got given Hawkbury on her a good chance as well, and then it's pretty open after that. And the last race we can finish with Seasons at $11 and $3.50 the place.
Give her strength.
Mate, good to chat. It's been a long recording. Hopefully we've found the punters a few winners. We're not here to give tips. We're here to analyse races and help you do your own form and form your own opinions. So good luck tomorrow, and let's hope it's a good day.
Yes, and just be very cautious with your money tomorrow. Don't go spending it on things that you don't need to. If you like one, have a go, and if you don't, stay right away from that racetrack.
Last time you said that, mate, I said, shut up and put your money on Fiesta in the last, and Fiesta got us the chocolates, but might not be Fiesta's day tomorrow. Good punting, mate. All the best.
Enjoy. Go Pies.
See you, mate.